and his crew create commercials and say, hey, former Mayor Woodrow Stanley, he is past that. The people of the city of Flint has voted Woodrow Stanley in as a county commissioner. He's an elected official, him and Raynetta Speed. They represent the city of Flint. Dayne hates Woodrow Stanley. His heart is not forgiving. Not like in my church. This guy is so hung up on Woodrow Stanley, he created literature and commercials about Woodrow Stanley and tried to mix him with Dayne Walling. It's the craziest thing I ever seen. This guy should be trying to work with county commissioners, such as Raynetta Speed and Woodrow Stanley. He don't understand. That's his problem. That's why the Flint Journal on Thursday endorsed Dayne Walling. The Flint Journal said that Dayne Walling can work with Democrats and people in the city of Flint, such as Dale Kildee, county commissioners, the Democratic Party, Woodrow Stanley. Dayne Walling can be a maestro and bring people back together. He can bring in the Eric Mazes, the Woodrow Stanleys, the Dale Kildees, the Dan Kildees. He understands the land bank. So guess what? That's all you have to do. You have to look at who is around Williamson, the people getting the little monies. And then you have to look at the organizations, the unions, the Democratic Party, and the people around Dayne Walling. And you decide on tomorrow who you'll vote for. Are you voting for a person who can pass you in the street and hand you $100? Or are you voting for the person who can pull people together, create jobs, hire new police, keep the jail open, pave streets? See, Dayne is famous for paving streets. I guarantee you that'll be his legacy. When they talk about Don Williamson as mayor, they'll say, hey, he paved streets. We want a mayor who can do 4, 5, 6 things at the same time. Walk and chew gum. So that's what my show is about today. I wanted to start out by saying to you, watch this show. I got a surprise guest for you the day before the election. Mays, who is your surprise guest? I'm not going to tell you right now. But when the surprise guests come on the day before the election, I don't want you to say this wasn't a good show. I want you to say it was a good show. I want you to call people right now and say, just like Bob Leonard and Sam Riddle was on there, that Eric Mays is on. The Eric Mays show is on. It's 9:30 on Monday, the day before the election. I don't know what's on the other channels, but guess what? You want me to stop and wait for you to call somebody? I'm not going to do it. But what I do want you to do is stop right now, call 2 or 3 people and tell them to call 2 or 3 more people and see what I'm finna say. Monday, November 9th, the day before the election. This is what has happened so far. Look how dirty and nasty Don Williamson and his crew is. This is what they did. You take this to the bank. They created a flyer, a piece of campaign literature. You all seen it by now. It had Woodrow Stanley on it with a big head, Dayne Walling with a big head and a little body, and they had Woodrow Stanley up like he was, dealing with Dayne like a puppet. And they were saying Woodrow Stanley was training Dayne Walling. And what they were trying to do, they were trying to scare white people. Yeah, I said it. They were trying to scare white people because they knew from the primary election that white folks such as Jack Miner, Dan Kildee, the Gleason, the Emerson, white folks who know what's happening. They know that white folks had voted for Dayne Walling almost 2-1 over Williamson. They also knew that black folks who had voted for Williamson, it wasn't enough. They knew that when you add the Norm Bryant and the Sheldon Neely vote, along with the white folks, Walling wins. So in the last minute, they've tried to scare the hell out of you. They've tried to act like Woodrow Stanley is fixing to come back into City Hall. I can assure you, Woodrow Stanley is a county commissioner. I'll predict to you that the next office Woodrow Stanley run for will be state rep, the one that Brenda Clack can't run for no more. Woodrow Stanley ain't trying to come back in the city of Flint. They tried to scare the hell out of you. That's how slick they are. I'm here to tell you the truth and set the record straight. Welcome to Flint politics. Tomorrow, I'm going to be voting Dayne Walling. You know why? Because at first I didn't know who he was. I'm like, who the hell is Dayne Walling? And then I went over his house. I met him. I called him on his cell phone. Who the hell is you? Once I met the guy and talked to the guy, not the first time, it took me 2, 3, 4, 5 times. Then I had to see, was he going to call me back? I've tested him. Guess what I'm going to do? This is the Eric Mays Show. I'm going to put my reputation on the line, and guess what? Don Williamson must go. He ain't been true and honest. I'm fixing to give Dayne Walling a shot. Welcome to the Eric Mays Show, Dayne Walling. And I want you to just sit back and you see what I did. I took up a lot of time. Y'all didn't know who my surprise guest was. Don didn't show up. Did I expect Don to show up? No. He didn't show up. Well, guess what? So I called Dayne Walling. I said, Dayne Walling ain't going to show up again. Well, guess what? Boom! He showed up. Do you know who Dayne Walling is? Have you met him? I've met him, talked to him a lot of times. The office is up on Clio Road. We'll be there at 5:30, 6, 7 in the morning tomorrow, election day. We want people. We want cars. We want people talking Dayne Walling. Get out and vote. We finna beat Don Williamson. Welcome to the show, Dayne Walling. This is the day before the election. You've been in a debate. I think you won the debate. A lot of people is talking. I'm finna sit back. I ain't gonna give him the whole show. Say what you want to say, Dayne Walling. Y'all welcome Dayne Walling to the Eric Mays Show.
Thank you, Eric. It's great to be here. This is an exciting night. Tomorrow, Flint voters, you have a very important decision to make. You've heard Eric talk about how he came to be a supporter. I want you to be a supporter too, because I know from talking to people all across this city that you are ready for Flint to have something again. It's simple. You, like me, may be raising kids. You may be raising your grandkids. You know that this generation coming up in Flint does not have the opportunities that we had growing up here. That's a fact. And steamrolling some streets and laying some sledgehammers on some old houses is not going to change that. That's not enough. We have to have the best team possible working together at City Hall. And you may not personally agree with every person who has stepped forward to support me.